and good morning and good evening across the globe. We'll be beginning our presentation or webinar today. Before we head into the webinar, just a quick instructions on the basic usage of a live meeting. If you have any issues on audio, listening to audio, you would have the option of video, a voice and video option on your top menu. Click on that and you would have an option called join audio, and that would enable you to join the audio back to the webinar in case you have issues there. And in case you have any questions, please do raise the questions. You could click on the Q&A menu and you could type in and post your question, and I'll try and answer this question as soon as possible. With this, we'll start with our webinar today. And we are all here basically to understand what's going on in the mobile app development. I think with the advent of and proliferation of mobile apps and along with the mobile devices, we see a host of business aspirations, requirements to best cater to the consumer and to the enterprises. And one of the most fundamental issues or challenges that grapples the business is how do we develop the app? And that's how the curiosity is all about. What's the curious case about developing an app, a mobile app, using the native or whether it's a cross-platform development. So today we would be basically covering conceptually about what are the various approaches that we can take in development of mobile apps and what suits our requirements best. Just a brief about Canaries. Canaries has been a leading software development company, services company. We basically cater to technology spectrum, including mobile, ERP practice on Microsoft Nav. We have product development. We also have the custom application development and maintenance in a host of technologies, including Microsoft, J2E, and also the LAMP technologies. And we are also a gold certified partners for Microsoft on their application and lifecycle management. Just a brief introduction about your host today and me. I have an experience of more than a decade and a half of teamwork, and I had the mobile business unit and the practice at Canaries. And in addition to mobile practice, I also have a lot of experience in developing enterprise applications. And with the advent of mobile, I do have the same experience in developing enterprise applications on the mobile platform and as well as consumer applications too. So the agenda or the topics that we will be covering is primarily divided into the problem as to what the business faces, the challenges that the business faces, what kind of choices that they have, what are the typical dilemma, what kind of fear or what kind of decisions that they need to take prior to the development. And then we would also look at what are the choices available itself in terms of the technology, in terms of the solution itself. And then we would look at a couple of case studies where we would also look at how and where the decision to go with a particular development approach can be taken. So let's look at the kind of buzzwords that we have on a typical enterprise scenario. It's also applicable almost to even the consumer scenario too. What we see is with the advent of devices, especially into the enterprises, and and people expecting, users expecting to bring their own devices. That's why we have the BYOD, that is bring your own devices. And this brings basically a challenge to the business to cater to all the users within the enterprise. And when they cater to the various users in the enterprise, they need to cater to the various devices that they bring in. And it's kind of a very heterogeneous system that we are talking about. And you would have a range of devices starting from iOS, Apple, Android-based devices to even the Blackberries, the Windows, and even the older ones like we still have a lot of usage of Symbian and the Bada and any other the older devices that we have. And along with that, the users expect their enterprise apps or consumer apps also to be integrated with the enterprise systems. They would want to kind of have an integration with the social media where they could interact either with their own peers or with the consumers outside of the enterprises, and and also have some kind of expects kind of more of analytics and related reports and gamification to add to the rewards and recognitions of these employees. These are the kind of buzzwords that we see, and this is what basically brings in kind of a challenge for the business to cater to, which we'll see further now. So what the business does is they have to, the aspiration of a business is to develop an app that caters to its business fundamentally, but at the same time they want to enable it to be flexible, and they want to be able to expand that app, cater to various organizations within the enterprise, various users within the enterprise who could be working on various subunits or organizations within them. And when we talk about the users, it's also, which I earlier talked about, they do bring about various devices and platforms on board, and which needs to be catered to by the enterprise. And that is what basically determines what kind of a development platform that we would need to cater to or adapt to. So we need to have the right set of development methodology, tools and practices in place to build those and cater to those business aspirations. And it's very important that a business today look at building it at a very quick time. I mean, the time to market is rapidly, and also to maximize the revenue that is generated out of each employee or each developer that has been used to develop an app, and that is what governs the entire area of business aspirations. And this basically talks about the kind of challenge that we see today. And as a developer or as a business user who has to take a decision, this is what they need to cater to. And they need to look at this fragmented device landscape and adopt to various devices that are prevalent in the market. And as I've talked about even earlier, you have a range of devices. Predominantly, yes, we do see that Android has a predominant market share, but yes, there is a substantial share of iOS or Apple Symbian too still. Windows is yes catching up a lot. We also have the older versions of Windows Mobile. I mean, that's the 6.0 and below versions, and BlackBerry and others too. And this is basically the kind of challenge that, or the challenge that business needs to cater to when they are developing those apps. So with this, when we have those challenges, so quickly coming on to what kind of a choice that the business has. So if you have to cater to these kind of devices, you have a choice either to develop on a native or a cross-platform environment. And when it comes to the native environment, you have to adopt to the native environment of each of the device and build the app using the development tools or IDEs and SDKs that has been provided by those device, either the vendors or the OS operating system vendors. Generally, you have, I mean, these are just typical examples that we see. Like you have the Apple iOS and with that, we have the tools like Xcode SDK that provides the libraries to build app on iOS. Similarly, we have for the Android development platform, we have the SDK, Android SDK, which primarily developers use the Eclipse IDE to develop those apps. Similarly, with BlackBerry, we have the BlackBerry plugins. We have the Windows Visual Studio as the development tool, and then we have a host of cross-platform technologies which are provided by various vendors, each kind of catering to a host of devices, not necessarily to the entire gamut, but each of them have their own niche and areas in which they focus on. And some of the names that I would mention at this stage, we have is one of the market leaders that we have right now is the PhoneGap, and then we have the Titanium Accelerator, which is also very prevalent in the developer community. Apart from this, we also have few more we have the Sencha Touch, we have the Mono Xamarin Mono, which is more of a .NET based platform where you can develop iOS and Android applications using the .NET framework also. So with this kind of a choice, so we'll have to see as to what basically works well. Let's see. Before I proceed, if there are any questions that you would want to raise, you could please post them on the Q&A option, and I would answer them as soon as possible. If there are no questions, I think we can proceed further. Delving deeper into the choices that are available and with respect to what is available with the native apps and the cross-platform apps. A typical architecture of a native app is to make use of the core operating system. I mean, what I've illustrated here is just a representative. It is a representative. The architecture is similar whether you use an iOS or whether you use a Windows or use a BlackBerry framework. It's all very similar. At the core, what we have is basically the operating system, and then the services that are built on top of this operating system, which provide the core operating system, and which have access to the various hardware features of a device, which could be the camera, the speaker, the GPS, and the touch itself, and so on. So that's basically fundamentally provided by the core and the system services on top of that. And on top of that, there is the libraries which a developer uses to basically program or code in the programming environment that is provided by that SDK. So if it is a Windows thing, you would typically use a C#, VB.NET with the help of HTML, CSS. Similarly, if it is an Android SDK, you would use an Android-based application which is similar to Java. For iOS, just to add to iOS, typically you would be using Objective-C as a programming environment. Let's take a closer look at what the typical cross-platform architecture looks like. The general thumb of rule is the cross-platform apps or the technology itself. They abstract out the core services that which interact with the operating system and or even the device. So, we don't have to directly access the system libraries, nor do we have to access directly the various hardware that is available to be made use of. Instead, all of them would be either provided as a plugin, or they would be provided as some kind of an API that is directly available to us. And the other major difference that we see here is the programming environment is totally different from what is provided in the native. the flexibility that is provided in a cross-platform is very comprehensive. It allows a developer to choose a simple programming environment like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and so on. I mean, what I've seen is that in many of the cases, I've seen even most of the novice developers able to quickly develop an app using HTML5 or CSS and get it ready on the marketplace. In fact, I have I have seen at least, in fact, even people even from the marketing who have no connection with the development environment, they have been able to kind of quickly develop apps with whatever HTML knowledge that they have had. And so this is the fundamental shift from what is provided from the native environment. Any questions, or you would like to pause at this stage? Okay. So I have no questions. So let's proceed ahead. Now, when I have these kind of a choices between the native, the cross-platform environment, so here is what I need to decide as to what do I choose. I mean, do I go with the native or do I go with the cross-platform approach? And this is what every business manager or decision maker or even a developer has to cater to before the start of an app development. So let's kind of look at the factors that would help to take a decision on what works best for the development environment. Starting from what the strategy is all about, whether it's an enterprise app, and when we're talking about enterprise, as to what kind of user base we are talking about, what kind of devices that we need to cater to, that's the kind of strategy that in what is the roadmap and goal of that application, and how long will it be maintained and operated upon. That's fundamental. And with that basically comes, when you decide on that, then we need to look at what kind of a development experience or developer experience that we have to carry out the development of that app. So there has to be a competent development activity. And then looking at once we have made the choice, we also need to look at for that particular tool or a technology that we use to get started, to develop the app, are there kind of a support available? Is there industry best practices? Is there a good support forum, first of all, and are the responses from the vendors good enough? That is a very important factor, because often we have seen there are many open sources and tools, but once you hit upon an issue, if you don't get a support, you do tend to get caught up in a roadblock and might kind of hamper the delivery of the app itself. And then we also need to cater as to what is most cost effective. So the cost is basically also determined based on what kind of a development team that I'm putting up to develop this app, and of course the time that has to be required to get it to the market and available. So with this factors, you would basically determine that this basically provides a kind of this kind of provides a matrix as to what would work best for the app, and then focusing particularly on the maintenance and the operation of an app, which is core and fundamental. It's just not about developing an app, but we also need to look at the roadmap and what constitutes the future of that app itself, and because that basically also determines as to what kind of a development team that I need to sustain over a long period of time. That's number one. And once I have that, I need to also look at let's take for example, if I have chosen say a particular cross-platform tool, say like PhoneGap or Titanium, then I need to know as to what kind of SDKs that they provide, what are the upgrades that they have provided, and whether they kind of provide support for the latest operating systems that have been released by the device manufacturer, like Android and iOS, etc. So we have to have that kind of a roadmap and outlook in place in mind when we decide upon a particular choice. Digging a little deeper into how you could have a kind of a formal process or a methodology in place while evaluating and helping to arrive at a decision, you would typically arrive at a risk factor, and that would be determined by two aspects. One is the fit cap, uh, and the other is the maturity of the tool. Fit cap is basically to identify as to what are the user requirements for the app, and whether those user requirements can be met by the tool that I'm going to adopt. Let us take an example. If say I want to build an app that say has a chat software or which with say an audio feature, then I need to know whether that kind of that capability, whether the capability to have a chat with the audio, maybe an upload or this thing, or maybe a peer-to-peer protocol is available with that particular tool vendor or not. And that is an example of what a fit gap analysis is all about. And also in fit gap, we need to cater to also, but very important factor is the browser, because the fundamental nature of a cross-platform app or a programming model is the HTML and the CSS, which makes use of the WebKit environment provided by the device manager. And the WebKit that is used by various devices and operating systems differ from each other. And so what we have seen typically is that in a particular approach works well on a particular device like iOS or Android, but need not necessarily work on as well on say a Windows mobile environment. So we have to be aware of such discrepancies that can arise because of the WebKit differences. The other major factor that we need to look at is the user experience. Does the user experience for the app will it be catered to by the native environment or by the cross-platform environment? I will delve a little bit more on the user experience a little forward in my webinar today, but that's a very important factor there. On the maturity of the tool, yes, it's important to know. The most important thing is to know the maturity of the tool that we are going to use. So whether you use PhoneGap or whether you use Titanium or Sencha or Xamarin, you have to know as to what is the how many versions are out, what kind of a support that they provide, what kind of active user base that they have, how many apps are there in the market, and other factors are basically what's the kind of learning curves, what kind of a native look and feel that they can provide, and the performance that they provide. Let me talk a bit about the native look and feel and the performance now here. Generally, you have any app that is developed on a native environment provides it provides the look and feel that is embedded along with the device and the operating system, and with that you get a very good response of the various user controls and the UI elements within the app. Whether it's a touch, or whether it's a swipe, or any other gestures, generally the native apps tend to have more better performance. So when you're looking at a cross-platform app, we need to arrive at the right tool and the platform that matches best to provide that native look and feel. To that. So whether it's PhoneGap or Titanium or any other tool, we have to look at that fundamental factor also into that. And the other thing is obviously the what we look at is what kind of support is available across various platforms. So we know that there are some choices, and we know that there are some technology choices vendors that are available. So let's look at what kind of what are the cons, pros and cons of each of these particular option. I have a question here, and the question is: do the cross-platform tools allow creation of apps in all the ecosystem like iOS, Android, Windows, BlackBerry, and Symbian? Actually, a very good question, and that's basically the entire the core of the cross-platform app itself. As I've said earlier, some of the cross-platform vendors cater to a niche. Let me give an example. For example, Titanium Accelerator caters to only Android and iOS, whereas a tool like PhoneGap caters to a much wider spread of devices, which includes even iOS, Android, Windows, BlackBerry, some versions of Symbian, even some versions of Bada, and also WebOS also. Tools like Xamarin, they support specific platforms like iOS and Android again. So it all depends on the kind of market or the target segment that a particular tool vendor supports. This also brings us to another interesting question. If a tool like PhoneGap supports all these cross-platform, supports all these things, so why not just go for PhoneGap? And why do we need to choose, say, a Titanium or any other tool? The answer to that question is, although a tool like PhoneGap might support all the many of the platforms compared to the other environments, but the performance or the responsiveness could be, say, a little lesser compared to what the other tools like Titanium might offer. So that's basically a kind of a trade-off that we might need to make when we want to take a decision on what we need to go forward. So, so that's about what the cross-platform tools support. I hope I have answered my questions. Okay. Let's look at the kind of pros and cons for the native apps. So as I said earlier, that it's basically embedded along with the operating system and the device itself, and you have access to all the hardware features and which are exposed by the native APIs. And in addition to that, very important for the development community to have a good debugging and a development tool environment or with ID support, which would help them to debug issues and or any other development effort required. So that's much better with the native apps. And of course, native apps respond and perform much better compared to a cross-platform app or the mobile apps. And in fact, it's just some of the statistics also show that they are at least 10 times or 15 times faster than the cross-platform apps that are developed. On the flip side, however, what we see is that if you need to develop apps on multiple platforms, so you have to build an app for every native environment that you're looking at. So if you want to say develop an app on iOS, Android, and BlackBerry or Windows, you have to develop on each of those individual platforms SDKs that are provided. So typically your development is it's like from a ground up development for each of those environments. So, and that also means that you need to have the developers catering to each of those devices too. And with that brings the project management challenges like managing requirements, changes, maintenance of that, the versions of that, and then also the code base along with that. So that's some kind of a flip side that we see when we look at the native environment. So let's look at what the cross-platform platform tools or apps offers. So as I mentioned earlier, also they're much easier to develop. Just in most of the tools with simple HTML, CSS knowledge, you can just get your app on the App Store in a quick amount of time. They offer very high portability. With very minimal effort, you can ensure that they are ported across various platforms or devices. And they, of course, they are cost effective because of the you require number one less developers, and also you can reuse a lot of code across various devices. But on the flip side of this, yes, they are much slower and they respond much slower to user gestures, user inputs, including like swipe and touch and other features. And there are certain limitations that we need to be aware of when we choose a particular cross-platform vendor. And you have to read some of the fine print of the features that are supported. Let me give an example of what we have encountered earlier also. there was this particular vendor where they supported the Bada OS, the thing, and we did go about doing that with that, and started the development with that. And but when we uh, went a little deeper, we noticed that they were supporting only the not the highest and the greatest version of Bada, which is the 2.x, but the older version of the Bada phones, which is the 1.x version. So that basically kind of put us off on one of the apps that we were looking at. Similarly, this it happened even on the Symbian and even on the earlier BlackBerry environment also with, on this particular platform too. So you have to read those fine prints, be aware of what is available and not available, and then arrive at that. So when we looked at the kind of merits, demerits with respect to each of those platforms, cross-platform technologies. So let's see, when do we go for what? So generally, when you need a very high-performing app, which is relying a lot on the device features like the audio, the camera, the video taking capabilities, the GPS location, and which have to perform well, and where the response is important. That's when you have to definitely. It's highly recommended to go for the native development environment. And also, if you have a lot of immersive graphs where you have where you need to delve into multiple layers and levels of graphs and charts, and even canvas-based apps itself, where you have to put in layers on top of certain things um, like let's say augmented reality, or even the map, if you want to overlay a map on top of any other thing. So that's when you have to basically, it's recommended to go on the native environment. If a business, or if you're not looking at such kind of a graded app, it's always better to go for a cross-platform app, which is much quicker and easier to develop and takes much lesser time. So this basically determines as to what what is to be used at what kind of a time. Again, to delve, I would lay a lot of emphasis on the user experience and the UI itself. One of the core and the fundamental principles on this thing is to decide if you want a highly responsive user experience, go for native. If not, go for cross-platform. So with this, let's look at some of the case studies where I can actually show you how we decided upon what works best in an app environment, and whether it's a native or whether it's a cross-platform that I would need to go for a particular scenario. Let me just open up a demo here, and I'll just show a present demo, and then and what I'm going to do is this app is so I'm just a brief background about this app is this app basically had kind of all the things that are required, typically expected out of any immersive native experience. So this with a lot of graphical features in this, requiring some of the image to be created and processed also. So what this app does is basically it's used by health providers and patients also, where they create a pain profile. I mean, if you encounter a pain in your body, it basically allows you to create a profile of pain within the app, and kind of mark areas where you have a pain in the body, and also what is the intensity and depth of the pain, and then it does the app basically provides an analysis of the pain itself, which basically helps a provider to diagnose the problems itself. Delving a little, let me start this video. I will try to kind of highlight the features here, and then I will talk about the technology that we had to use for this. So let's start this app. So what it allows me to do is it allows me to kind of draw the pain areas. It allows me to shade an area within the body, uh, and which marking as to where the pain is occurring. And if you saw, one of the things that we saw here was when I shade an area, it allows me to only shade an area within the body and not outside this body structure here. So it was basically truncated. And it allows you also to kind of, it has a capability where you can erase an area that has already been shaded in this. So this is the kind of technology constraint that we have with respect to this app. Coming to the choice of what we had to use. This app primarily was built earlier on a cross-platform basically. It was built on this was particularly built on the Titanium Accelerator app, and what we had seen that the earlier development efforts from a vendor basically was not responsive here because first of all they were not able to even shade an area within the body right, and it was also shading outside this thing. Even the entire gesture of shading itself was taking a long time. There was a lag of almost 1 or 2 seconds while the user was actually shading an area. So there was so a very perceivable difference between what was there in the was done in this thing. And so this problem was brought to us as a technology, and we had to kind of bring in a solution for this app. And what we decided was within the cross-platform itself, so because we didn't want to again redevelop the entire app, but wanted to cater to this particular segment of or screen or the functionality. So what we decided was to replace the cross-platform code and insert something called as native plugins. So one of the features of the cross-platform apps, most of the cross-platform, is that they allow you to also build native apps as plugin and insert that within the their SDK or the framework itself. So it almost gives the feel and look. It gives the same look and feel of what the native app itself provides. So for this particular area here, the drawing canvas and the body, we had to basically go in for the native plugin, and we had to develop a native plugins both for the Android and for the iOS, which is what the intended platforms for this app. And then after that, we saw that when the user wanted to draw the shaded area, the performance improved tremendously, and there was kind of no lag in what the user drags or swipes and what is actually shaded in the app. So this was a major improvement that we saw. So this is an example of what kind of a decision that we need to take when we are building an app, and we need to be aware as to where we have to use. Even if you are using a cross-platform, we need to be aware of where we need to use a native plugin and where we need to make use of the cross-platform SDK that itself is provided. So this gives you an example of that. Let me move forward on this and show you some screens where. So this is where I basically mark my intensity of this. So this portion is what was also again developed on the native plugin, and here is where I also have the capability to pin an area where I can mark my center of the pin. So this was again developed. We had to rewrite the code again on the native plugin so that the feature of pinning the particular area could be done. And then let me show you an example where we could leverage. Yeah. So this is an area. This is actually the processed image, the final image that is displayed to the user after it has been shaded and the pin has been marked. This particular piece of code retains the original cross-platform code that was developed in HTML JavaScript. So here there is no requirement for us to kind of do any kind of a further processing on the image itself. So this is an example of where we could use a cross-platform code and a kind of a native code in this environment. So let me with this let me come back to my presentation. Any questions on the case study that I described in doubts that you have? So, okay, we will move forward now. So what we saw here was an example of where we had to make a technology decision purely based on a technology here. Let me also give you an example of another case study where we had to, where it's much more elaborate app uh, and where we had to put in a lot of methodologies and process which I had described earlier in my presentation about the decision factors and the kind of the fit gap analysis that we carry out. So, so this particular app catering to the transport sector, where there was a requirement to manage a fleet of people and crew and manage their the resources within the crew. The thing. And it had kind of requirements to the communication between the crew was important with the chat and audio facilities. Also ability to kind of provide real-time feedback with audio and maybe even photo picture taking capabilities and so on. So that was the kind of requirement. But the major requirement here was that this app had to cater to almost all the devices and operating systems that are known in the market. I mean, this was the kind of requirement that was given to us. I mean, and a statement was that it has to cater to everybody, irrespective of what device that they use. So it could mean the latest and greatest versions of the iOS Apple or the Android, the Windows, the Blackberries, WebOS. It had to the Bada phones and the Symbion's phones and whatever was possible to do that. So the operational requirement was basically a big challenge for us. And this, when you have such kind of an operational requirement, it is very important to go through a formal process of deciding what tool and what approach works best. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that we did was to do a fit gap analysis here. And before that, we did a kind of a risk evaluation. This is a very high level of risk evaluation of what we had done. There are even the drill downs available for each of these factors. So, but at a very high level, we had to kind of determine as to whether what kind of factors are important, like we had all platform support is required. Then whether are all the features required for all the particular devices, is that available or not? Then what is the kind of time to market? So we had a very aggressive timelines for this, almost like 3 to 4 months of a time frame. The cost, yes, we had to keep a minimal cost, as I say, catering to that. That also determines basically what kind of resources. So even if you have the cost and you are able to bear the cost, but it's also important to know whether you have availability of resources for all the intended platforms. So if you want to build a Symbian app, you need to know whether you have a resource available to develop a native app on Symbian or on a Bada phone. So that's also an important factor. In many of the cases, in our case, yes, we didn't have a resource available for a particular platform. So that was also consideration. And what we estimated and evaluated was that with the cross-platform approach, we could have support for majority of the platforms, devices. We could also cater to many of the features, but some unimportant features were missing with the cross-platform apps, which I will tell in the next slides. Yes, we could also evaluate that it would be much faster to develop apps and bring it out in the market. Primarily because you can do parallel developments on various platforms together. So that kind of brings speed to the development. Yes, cost is definitely an area where because you would utilize a lesser number of resources. In fact, you could also use lesser, in many of the cases what I've seen, not just pertaining to this app, but you could notice is that you could also use lesser skilled resources also if you're using on a cross-platform app. And if they just know the HTML and CSS, they generally tend to pick up pretty much faster. With this kind of an assessment we did do, and we also did a more detailed study about, this is an example of a fit gap analysis which I described earlier. What we do here in the fit gap analysis is mark the features that are required to develop that app at a very high level here. And when we have chosen that particular cross-platform app, in this case, we had chosen PhoneGap primarily because they, at least as a base version, they had support. They have a support for almost all the apps or some devices in the market today. And what we did is for each of those targeted platform from PhoneGap, iOS, Android, Windows, and things, we did a marking whether that particular feature is available, and if it is available, what kind of a support is available, whether it's average, medium, or high. And if it is not available, then we mark that as no. For example, here it is not available or something. And then if what we also do, and this is very important here, is we also identified areas or requirements that would use or would require a native plugin to be developed. And so where we could determine as to what kind of developers we need or to hire at that particular or use at a particular point of time, which basically also helps in the, if you, with this kind of a matrix or a sheet, it helps us to kind of also plan for what kind of resources we need to deploy at what kind of a time. Yeah. And so what we did is we, with that fit gap analysis, we had to arrive at the hybrid model comprising of both the cross-platform code with HTML, CSS, and this is what we did. And also we had to build native plugins for the features that were identified earlier on. And also, yeah, another interesting thing here is about the push notifications thing. Although you might have seen, you might expect that the cross-platform vendors provide that, but this is not generally provided by natively by the cross-platform frameworks. You might have to either use some third-party tools, or you might have to go in for a native plugin. Another important thing is the data storage capabilities. Some of the cross-platform tools do not provide offline data storage capabilities. And with that, what we saw is on this particular app, we saw that we could kind of develop this app with minimal resources, having this HTML, CSS, and we used some of the native developers just in time for very short periods of time, and they came in and developed particular specific plugins and which were integrated within the cross-platform framework. The cost was we saw at least in terms of the projected cost of what we had estimated for the native development of this, and what was actually the cost incurred by us. We saw that there was a 30% reduction in the cost factor. Similarly, with respect to the effort itself, that's required with 25% of this, and most importantly, we met the requirement to deliver the app to the market at the stipulated time. Okay. So with the case studies and also the approaches, let's kind of summarize as to what is important when we have the curiosity with respect to developing an app on the native or the cross-platform environment. So a very important factor is to be aware of what the requirements are. Do not assume that a particular requirement or a feature will actually be met by a cross-platform or native. Do not assume that. It's very important if you have a doubt, any kind of a doubt, carry out any kind of a proof of concept before you actually determine what approach needs to be taken. And the proof of concept has worked a lot in many places for us and help us kind of evaluate risk much earlier and eliminate risk much earlier for us. Um, Optimize your resources. See that they are. If you have uh, a choice between cross-platform or a native, see what works best. See if the cross-platform actually works, and so that you can optimize your requirements, and so that you can minimally make use of the native developers. Yeah. And of course, it's very important to factor in the longevity of the app. So that's where the maintenance and the operations of the app comes into picture. So the longevity also, again, to re-emphasize, determines or decides as to what kind of a resource and the cost that you would need to bear continuously over the period of time when the app is alive. So, so it's very important to have the maintenance to be factored. So let's say, so formally we have, so if come to the end. So I would be glad to take up any questions you might have. So let me put up a question. Okay, so I have a say, poll here. That's interesting. So we have a kind of a split here. Just another question. So do I know how do I go ahead with what works best for me. Okay, any more responses? Okay, so we have an interesting statistics here. We have almost a quarter of audience uh, kind of wanting to know how to proceed or not knowing how to proceed with app development. So if you have any question, please let me know. You could post your question. Else, you are most welcome to raise any questions to us at info@ecanaries.com. You can reach out us with feedback, and if you would like to have any other specific sessions or topics that you would like to cover in future, we would be very glad to come out with a customized webinars and sessions for you. So I guess there are no more questions. So I would like to say thank you one and all for being with us and helping us out. And please definitely do reach us at and write to us with your feedbacks. Thank you and see you again soon.